Imagine a former vice president stepping into the spotlight to defend a key ally against what she sees as a blatant misuse of power. Now that's a headline that grabs you right away. But here's where it gets controversial. Is this just political theater or a genuine fight for justice? Let's dive into the details of Kamala Harris's fiery remarks during her book tour stop in Washington, D.C., where she didn't hold back on criticizing the indictment of New York Attorney General Letitia James. And this is the part most people miss. Her words weren't just about one person. They painted a broader picture of how power can be weaponized in ways that shake the foundations of democracy. On Thursday, Harris, who you might know from her time as vice president and her roles as a prosecutor in San Francisco and California's top legal officer, took the stage at an event promoting her new book about the 2024 presidential campaign. The atmosphere was charged, not just from her passionate speech, but from repeated disruptions by demonstrators protesting Israel's military actions in Gaza. Despite the interruptions, Harris zeroed in on a shocking development, the indictment of Letitia James, the New York Attorney General. Today, I found out that New York's Attorney General has just been indicted, she declared, highlighting that even a conservative Republican prosecutor, who likely didn't share her political views, had previously concluded there wasn't sufficient evidence to proceed. For beginners wondering what an indictment means, it's basically a formal accusation that someone has committed a crime, kicking off a legal process that could lead to trial. In this case, James, who famously won a civil fraud lawsuit against Donald Trump in 2022, was charged in Alexandria, Virginia, with alleged mortgage fraud, stemming from an investigation that began back in May. Harris didn't stop there. She launched a scathing attack on the Trump administration's approach to the Justice Department. She pointed fingers at U.S. Attorney Lindsay Halligan, Trump's former personal lawyer, who was appointed to oversee prosecutions and has since brought charges against James and even former FBI Director James Comey. Trump installs someone unqualified to carry out his revenge mission, Harris said bluntly. Picture this. The top legal official of New York State gets indicted, even though a prior investigator, a conservative Republican no less, ruled there wasn't enough proof. This raises eyebrows, doesn't it? Is this a fair pursuit of justice or a targeted vendetta against political foes? Harris's comments suggest the latter, and it's a point that could spark heated debates among folks on different sides of the aisle. But the drama didn't end with her critique of the legal system. The event itself was interrupted 5 times by protesters rising from the audience. One even shouting, "Your legacy is genocide," in reference to U.S. policies on Gaza. Harris, visibly irritated by the third disruption, snapped back, "Look, I'm not the president of the United States," and later quipped, "Why not head to the White House and chat with him?" A clear jab at Donald Trump. This moment highlights a controversial tension. On one hand, free speech allows for such protests, but on the other, does it undermine the ability to have constructive discussions? Harris seemed to imply that the real accountability lies with the current administration, not her. Shifting gears, Harris also voiced strong opposition to the administration's aggressive stance on immigration enforcement and the decision to send National Guard troops to major cities like Chicago and Los Angeles. "I'm heading to Chicago tomorrow, where Black Hawk helicopters designed for battling enemies are being deployed in an American city," she argued, framing it as a tactic to instill fear rather than protect. For those new to this, Black Hawk helicopters are military vehicles typically used in combat, and using them domestically can feel like overkill, potentially escalating tensions in communities already dealing with social issues. Harris warned that deploying America's armed forces on our streets is more about intimidation than safety, a stance that might resonate with civil rights advocates, but could be seen as alarmist by supporters of strong border policies. Amid all this, with a government shutdown looming and federal workers facing another wave of job cuts, Harris offered words of encouragement to those in public service. "I urge you to hold your ground," she said. Because when this chaos subsides, we'll be left with a mess that needs fixing. She praised their dedication, countering Trump's criticisms of federal employees as lazy or unnecessary. Stick with it, she urged. Knowing your work is vital and valued, unlike what this individual claims about you and your team. We need you there. It's a heartfelt plea that underscores the human side of politics, reminding us that behind the headlines are real people doing essential jobs. So, what do you think? Is Harris right to call out these indictments as politically motivated revenge? Or is this just the system working as it should? And on the protests, do they enrich public discourse or do they drown out important voices? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear agreements, disagreements, or even counterpoints you might have. After all, democracy thrives on these conversations.